Hello everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. A quick reminder that I have a giveaway going on every single week, so if you're interested in entering and don't know how to enter, stay tuned until later in the video and I'll tell you exactly how to enter. That said, our first story of the day is by Joshi89. Write down all of my downtime? You got it. This happened about a month ago. I work at a plant that makes parts for a very known car manufacturer plant. My workplace is very picky about efficiency and your parts per hour. I work on a 3-person line, and on that particular line, we have the 2 people load the parts together and the robots weld them together, resistance weld, and they send it to the person in the middle to load it to be MIG welded by another set of robots, then inspect the parts and put them back on a rack to be sent to another line. If there is a bad weld, that person has to MIG weld repair the part if possible. Because of the certain sickness, we had to readjust on how we work to keep everyone and self-check ourselves before going to work, and have to report any symptoms, and no, they do not check the employee's temperature. Only ask them at the door. One day, I had a very bad cough that turned into a sore throat and a running nose. So I went to the EHS, Environment Health and Safety Office, to report my symptoms, and since I didn't have any other symptoms, I was approved to continue work but must wear a mask at all times. Go figure, and given me a bunch of cough drops. Remember how I said that we have 3 people on my line? Well, we had been struggling with the attendance since we went back to full production, about 80 to 90% attendance, and so we only gotten 2 people on that line until we get more people to show up for work. So we have to do the job for 3 people with just us 2, which is possible but can't run as fast. For reference, with 3 people, we can easily run over 60 parts per hour, but just 2 people, we barely get over 40 parts. Plus, I had to blow my nose every 15 to 30 minutes and sucking on cough drops one after another. Eventually, the coordinator came to me and asked me about why I wasn't hitting my numbers, and of course, I mentioned about the lack of a person and I wasn't feeling well. So then he looked at my downtime paper where I must write down all of my downtime including breaks and lunch. Then he asked me why I didn't write anything down. I told him that I was very busy with trying to run as much as possible. He was having none of it and demanded that I write down all of my downtime. I was very mad, but I decided to let the malicious compliance kick in. I took the downtime and write down the EHS visit, then continue to fill out the paperwork to include 1 minute of downtime every time I blow my nose, and 1 minute for every time I had to unwrap and insert a cough drop. Also included the time I was stopped and talked to the coordinator and the time it took me to write down my other downtime. By the end of the shift, I filled the entire downtime sheet, and because we have to share the same downtime with the night shift, they had no room to write down anything and they have to turn it into the team leader at the end of the night to be turned into the office where they have to go through them. In the next few days, I was expecting to be called into the office or asked about the paperwork, but that never happened, nor was it brought up in any meetings. Nobody said anything about it, but the coordinator was a lot more respectful to me, and we get along well, and eventually they were able to hire someone to run our line with us. I know the malicious compliance was petty and very childish, but it felt good and turned out better than I expected. Let me ask you guys, do you think this was overly petty or just kind of the right amount of petty for this malicious compliance? Let me know in the comments down below. This next story is by CatheterZetaJones, Roommate Meltdown over issue they created themselves, or How I Made an Angry Roommate Even Angrier. Fresh out of college, I lived with 2 roommates in a townhouse. For the most part, I was the designated roommate to call or email our landlord every time there was an issue. And there were a lot of issues. One day, something broke in the whiny roommate's bathroom that was totally irrelevant to me and the other roommate. I offer to call the landlord about it, but whiny roommate insists she wants to deal with it because she wants to tell off our landlord. Day after day, whiny roommate complains about the issue. Day after day, whiny roommate tells us how she's going to rip a strip off the landlord about this. Day after day, whiny roommate does not contact the landlord about it. Day after day, other roommate and I maliciously comply with her refusal of help. Weeks go by with a whiny roommate getting madder and madder, but will not contact the landlord about the issue. Something else breaks in the house and I call the landlord about that specific thing, and only that one thing. Landlord comes, fixes the specific thing, leaves. A roommate freaked out, full on screaming tantrum, lost her mind on me, locked herself in her room and did not talk to us for days. After that, we never again heard about whiny roommate's issue, which she never did contact the landlord about. If you're paying to stay at a place with a landlord, contact the landlord. I don't care how much you want to rip into them or whatever, just call them. Get the issue fixed, don't complain about it for weeks on end. Do something about it. I definitely stand with OP in them. This is her issue, that's what she's complaining about. You have nothing to do with that, let them deal with it. Our next story is by Lostaname. I have to use toilet paper to clean your dirty phone? Okay. This happened right before lockdown when I was helping my mother clean the apartment of my grandmother who had to go to a home for the elderly due to Alzheimer's. It was brought up today because both my mother and I thought it was a funny thing of me to do. My mother and I both have the habit of playing music while we do household chores, and this time was no different. While I was doing the living room, she was cleaning the bathroom with the shower. I suddenly hear her cursing. Her phone had fallen on the dirty shower floor. Her slight mysophobia caused her to freak out, so I offered to clean it for her. It was just one side and said it should be clean again in no time with a sheet of kitchen paper and a bit of soapy water. I attempt to move to the kitchen to grab a sheet of kitchen paper to clean with, but get stopped. Just use toilet paper. I ask her why, as it is the thin kind that basically disintegrates when humidity rises by 1%. She says it's less expensive, but other than that seems to be unable to make a good point. I roll my eyes and engage in my malicious compliance. As my mother watches on, I grab a whopping 4 sheets of toilet paper, fold them a little and let a few drops of water from the sink in the bathroom fall on it. My hand becomes already visible through the 4 sheets because it is that thin. I let a small drop of soap fall on it and start to rub over the surface of my mother's phone. The first wipe succeeded in almost tearing the toilet paper in half. Despite that, I continue cleaning her phone. In 3 wipes flat, I was basically just rubbing over the phone with my bare hand, holding whatever scraps of paper I could. While I continue cleaning, I look up at her with the straightest face possible and ask if I was doing it to her satisfaction. At which point she burst out laughing, admitting that I might have a point here and that I was allowed to use kitchen paper for this kind of cleaning in the future. I get trying to save money wherever possible, but like 1 sheet of kitchen paper isn't going to hurt anybody, let's be real. I get it, but for cleaning something off like that, toilet paper probably isn't the best solution, especially super thin like 1-ply toilet paper. Our next story is by Reserved Snows 673. Want me to tell you everything? Okay, ma'am. This is, I don't know, malicious, but is somewhat complianced. You know, during pandemic, all classes are online, so I'm a student and I'm attending class. I was drinking Coke and the ma'am noticed and said, "You can't drink that in class and I have to ask permission and everything." So what I did is I followed. Every time I unmute myself in between on purpose and ask some crappy stuff like, "Can I unmute myself, ma'am?" or like, "Can I drink water?" This lasted 3 weeks until the teacher gave up. Okay, like I get it in class, it's a soft drink and kids make a mess and that attracts bugs and whatnot, so that's usually why you aren't allowed that kind of thing in class. What's wrong about having a drink during an online class? Kids could have a full-scale hot chocolate with whipped cream and toasted marshmallows on it and I wouldn't care as a teacher. As long as they're paying attention and actively participating, what does it matter? I don't get it. This next story is by I'm Me and I Know It. The day I played football instead of doing math. I live and study in India. The education system out here is a little different. Basically, you study in the same school, unless you shift, of course. From kindergarten till usually the 10th grade. So that's 13 years in the same school. Now, in India, in the 10th grade, you have this countrywide exam, which basically determines which schools and streams you can apply to for the 11th and 12th grade. Even though almost everybody here goes private, the teachers can be, well, quite dodgy. I have so many stories but don't know where to post. Out here, So almost everybody takes extra classes, usually from the 8th grade, at least for math and sciences, because that's the only way you have a strong chance of getting good grades in the exams. That's enough background. Now, on to the malicious compliance. So, in the 9th grade, I had this teacher for math. Let's call her Miss S. Now, she wasn't terrible as a teacher, but she had this habit of grading our papers extremely strictly. So while she wasn't disliked, she wasn't really liked by the student body. So this one fine day, it was all sunny and everything. Miss S walks into class and starts teaching. I don't remember what topic she was teaching, but 90% of the class already knew what she was teaching thanks to the extra classes, and so nobody was really paying attention to what she was teaching. She figured this out, and for some reason, she got extremely irritated that we already knew what she was trying to teach. We weren't even disturbing her class. She yelled at us for a minute about respect and listening to what the teacher is trying to teach and some other stuff before saying the golden words. "If you think you know so much, then you're welcome to leave. Please leave. I won't say anything." The moment she said that, everybody became silent. We were just looking at each other's faces, waiting for the first one to get up and walk out so that we could follow. 5 of us from the back of the class stood, grabbed our bags, and walked out of the classroom, 60% of the class following behind. The only people who didn't come were those who were afraid of the repercussions. Her face when she saw us walking out the door was the perfect epitome of shock and surprise. Thankfully, she was a good sport about it and nothing happened to us. But boy, did that quickly become legend among our grade. And we spent the remaining half of her class playing football on the field. She did get a little angry several times over the same thing, but she never told us to leave the class again. It's definitely a very huge bluff the teachers put up by saying, "Well, if you already know it, then just leave if my class isn't so important." It's only pure statistics that one of these kids are actually going to follow through on these bluffs, right? And in this case, 60% of the class did, which is pretty impressive. This next story is by Duke of Gibbon. Today I learned a technically correct but meaningless answer affected the Battle of Jutland. Wishing to know whether the main German fleet had put to sea, he asked where the call sign of its commander, Admiral Scheer, was currently located. He was told correctly that it was in Wilhelmshaven. He then signaled to the British commanders that the German fleet had not yet left port. In fact, it had already done so, as Room 40 knew, leaving Scheer's personal call sign behind. He used the call sign of his flagship when embarked. When the advance group of the British fleet ran unexpectedly early into the main German fleet, confidence in the Admiralty's intelligence was shattered, and the Battle of Jutland turned into a missed opportunity. There were other mistakes during the course of the battle, but the first one was probably the most influential. Apparently, the commander was arrogant and unpopular, so they answered his question but didn't provide the needed information. History alerting malicious compliance. So what I'm getting here is the admiral for the British asked where Admiral Scheer was located. So he asked where the call sign was. He was told in response that the call sign for the person he was looking for was in Wilhelmshaven. The thing is, they also knew that they had left their call sign behind in Wilhelmshaven and had already left. So they maliciously complied with the question but didn't tell them the necessary details, leading to a missed opportunity in the Battle of Jutland. This next story is by Herefore Bad Advice. Don't want to stop sending me junk mail? Okay. Background. I was in the army and had been overseas for many years. Rarely ever got junk mail at my CMR, military post office box. When I moved back to the States, 2004, it was really surprising to me how much junk mail I received on a daily basis. Advertisements, credit card applications, etc. A lot of the same CC every single day. I was receiving so much junk mail that if I didn't check my mail every single day, there would be no room for real mail in my mailbox. I found out about the national opt-out of Do Not Mail list and signed up. It takes 30 days for all companies to update their list, so you can still get junk mail for up to a month. I just continued to toss all the junk mail and waited. After about a month, the vast majority of the junk mail stopped, but a lot of the CC applications were still coming. What's in your wallet? I read online at the time that what a lot of people do is fill the prepaid envelopes with your other junk mail and send them back. The companies end up having to pay for the return delivery and do not get a new account, so it usually gets them to take you off their lists. Nope. Still continue to receive junk. I kept sending the envelopes back and would write stuff like, "Take me off of your list," or "I don't want your stupid credit card," but nothing worked. While I was doing this though, I kept thinking about what I could do that would get them to stop. How could I make it so that they had no choice but to take me off their lists? One day, I was at the Orange Home Improvement store and was in the gardening section looking at some stuff to get ideas for landscaping. I was looking at some bricks for edging when I had my aha moment. $1 bricks. I called up my local post office and asked if it was okay/legal to send a brick through the mail. They said it was perfectly fine, but the postage would be expensive. I said that's not a problem. There were about 5 different companies that were still giving me trouble. So I bought 5 bricks for $5. I took them home and wrote up the following letter. To whom it may concern, I am on the national do not mail list, but you continue to send me credit card applications every day. Until you remove me from your mailing list, I will use your prepaid envelopes to send you bricks in the mail. I am a stonemason by trade and can do this for as long as you would like to send me applications. Take me off your list and have a nice day. OP's address. I then printed out 5 of these letters, put them into the prepaid envelopes and taped the envelopes to the bricks. I then ran down to the post office. The entire time I'm in line, I cannot stop giggling. Seriously. When I get to the front of the line and put down my bricks, this is what happened. Postal lady says, "Are you the person I talked to earlier?" "Yep." "These are prepaid envelopes?" "Yep." "Is that going to be a problem?" "No, I suppose not." I say thanks, have a nice day. After about a week, I no longer received credit card applications from those companies. I would think most of these prepaid envelopes only cover up to a certain degree and wouldn't really cover $1 bricks. Maybe that's just me not having enough knowledge about these prepaid envelopes. Maybe it's different in the time. It was back in 2004, so who knows? But I would think in most cases you wouldn't actually be able to get away with that, but it's impressive if they were. So quickly now, I want to explain just how to enter the giveaway. All you need to do is leave a comment on this video relevant to something you saw or heard or liked in any story in that video. That's it, you're entered. But it applies to every single video we upload this week. So to get the best odds at winning the $30 Amazon gift card giveaway, you'll want to leave a comment relating to any of those videos all week long. On Sunday, after the last video has gone out, I'll pick one comment at random and let you know on the following Monday who has won, and then it starts all over again. So make sure you leave a relevant comment on this video and additionally every video I upload this week for the absolute best chance to win. And while you're at it, why don't you go ahead and give the videos a like too, because it helps more than you could imagine. That said, our final story of the day is by Einer22. The bowl's not full, you say? Short and sweet malicious compliance from the food service industry. At the restaurant where I work, we serve soup and chili among other lunch items. The town the restaurant is located has a lot of older people, some of whom have grown more entitled with age. I'm serving one of these said older people some chili, which I've put a lid on because it's obviously dangerous to carry around hot chili without a lid. I didn't know that she was eating in before the pandemic, which made what happened slightly less malicious. She opens the chili in front of me and complains that it's not completely full. I attempted to explain to her that the soup bowls are meant to be filled a ½ inch from the top to avoid spilling, and there's a barely noticeable indentation indicating this. But she kept interrupting me, demanding that she get a full bowl of chili. When I come back with her bowl, it's full alright. Heaped over the top of the bowl where you can't possibly put on the lid without making a huge mess. And even carrying it to a table would be risky if you can't keep it steady. She looks up at me as if ready to complain again, and I interrupt her, asking in my most fake professional customer service voice if she'd like a plate to carry it on. I added that this is why there was a space at the top of the bowl, so it didn't put you at risk of a burn. The amount of chili I added was negligible, but she certainly got her full bowl. To be fair, as a person that indulges too frequently in giant servings of food, I kind of understand where you see these bowls that are not completely full and you think, well, they could have put a little bit more in. But if they explain to you that's how they normally do it, it's to prevent food from getting spilt over, it's to prevent people from getting burns, I feel like that's reasonable and you should be able to understand and accept that. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today, so if you enjoyed the stories today, please consider giving the video a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. And if you had a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. But no matter what you did, whether it was liking, commenting, subscribing, whatever you did, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, I'll be back tomorrow with more Reddit stories right here on the Storytime channel.